You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 21, on the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. I'm your host, Crispy, also known as Crispy Wonton, or simply just Anton, and on today's show, Therese from the Soju Talk Nation, TikTok lady herself, and number one superfan of JB, comes on to talk about his recent mini album, SOMO FUME, and we do a bit of a deep dive on each track on the mini album. And Therese gives a lot of great insight about the process, interviews that he's given to talk about the story, and just some insights on JB himself. It's a really cool conversation. We get into it. And I do appreciate that Therese is that super fan to give us that perspective on how the music came together. Coming up, my chat with Therese about the one and only JB and his solo album, SOMO FUME. Joining Soju Sessions this week, TikTok lady and number one simp for JB from the Soju Talk Nation, currently in Chicago unemployed, but will soon be in Florida, Therese. Welcome to the show, Therese.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, so I was listening to this album over the weekend, I think between Sunday and Monday, and I did a little bit of a deep dive because I listened to By the Way, and I was like, oh, I think the rest of the album's going to be this vibe.
Yeah, very solid opener.
So I did, and I was like, all right, time to do a deep dive on this album. So I looked up the list of all the Soju Talk people, and, it took me hours and hours to finally come to the conclusion that I think you are a fan of JB.
Really, hours.
It was such a hunt to find.
What you're saying is that I'm not posting enough pictures
like I
of
said,
JB.
It took me hours.
Got it. Okay.
But in all seriousness, as soon as I listened to the album, I was like, I would like to do a deep dive on this, so I would like to have you on. And here we are. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start at the top with JB. He is a soloist. He is with GOT7. GOT7's doing a thing. They're a thing still, but
it's not formerly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's GOT7 is still a thing. They're just not currently as active as they previously were. They are no longer with JYP, but they are still a group. JB is the leader of GOT7. He is a very handsome man, a very great vocalist. You are his number one fan. Let's start with that. What's your history with JB? What are your first memories? And what is your origin story with this musician?
So it's a little embarrassing because I only got into GOT7 within the past, I guess it's 2 years now, because it was during quarantine. My first IRL K-pop friend, GOT7 was her old group, and she kept trying to get me into them. And when I first listened to their music, I didn't think much of it. Like, it was either really hard or really soft, and I don't know. But once you get to know the members, of course, you get to know their personalities, it really gets you into oh, okay, what are they doing now? And I think it was specifically the album You Calling My Name was on that had the very kind of chill, simplistic beats. And I don't know what it was, probably the music video, probably the songs, probably all of it. But I was like, okay, you know what? I'll learn the members' names just because I remember there was this one member that stood out, and it was all about stage presence. And it took me a while to realize that was JB. Just having to go through all of the members and all of their stage habits, So yeah, once I knew, okay, maybe I'll listen to more of their music, I got into their SoundCloud stuff because, of course, during quarantine, you eventually run out of content to consume. So going into his deaf soul persona of which he actually uses to produce or write some of GOT7's music as well, which was fun to find out. And the other members as well, like Young Jae has his own, and Yugyeom, they both are pretty active on SoundCloud, or they were, and hopefully will still be. So yeah, I started realizing like I have a preference towards the songs that he makes and his style because it's very atmospheric. Like it just immerses you into the sound rather than telling any sort of like overarching story. It's, it's nice.
Yeah, it's well, not too well. I feel like a lot of the entry points into boy groups and just like new groups is very similar and familiar to a lot of people, where you get introduced to it either by a friend or adjacent to something else, and then you fall into the rabbit hole and you strive to learn every single member until you find the member that you connect with the most.
Yeah.
For me, how I got into GOT7, I mentioned this to Warren, I think almost a year ago now. But
Wow.
GOT7, Hard Carry, 2016. I wasn't super into K-pop as much as I am today, but in anime conventions, K-pop and anime are adjacent. So what happened during that year? Hard Carry was played at booths throughout random conventions just here and there, and I'm just like, this is going way too hard. What is this? I look up, I see pictures of like very beautiful boys. I'm just like, cool, they're kind of handsome. But that was my first introduction to them musically. And then as I got more into K-pop, they were just present, and that song was just very popular. And just like you, slowly wanting to learn more and attach to the members and learn here and there. I think what stood out to me most is the fact that they are very individual artists. And like you said, with all their work on SoundCloud, with all their ability to kind of be creative on the side of GOT7 throughout the time they were with JYP, I think made them unique and something for me to, really attach to, as opposed to other boy groups.
Yeah.
What has been your experience being his fan over the time that you've known the group, and how has that changed over the year, 2 years that you've known him, and especially during this transitional period for the group?
Actually, kind of a side note, but as you know, Dream High is my all-time favorite K-drama. And when I found out that he was also in Dream High 2, it's like, yeah, that handsome guy that I remember watching when I was 14. But yeah, so coming from like not knowing any of them to getting to know them through their music specifically, up until now has been honestly very frustrating because like you get to know that JB specifically, he debuted as an actor in Dream High 2. He debuted with JJ Project. He debuted with GOT7. And then he debuted with a unit inside GOT7, Just 2, with Yu-Gi-Oh! And now he's debuting solo. And he's got all these different personas that he kind of likes to keep separate of like, oh, Deaf Soul is my producing, like my actual person being put into music. Oh, JB GOT7 is like this sexy stage monster, and then JB has to be something different, and it's a little overwhelming to think about it as a fan. I can't imagine what he's going through, and especially on a personal level of just like starting a new job at a new place in a new company. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are in the same boat right now with COVID screwing everything up. But when you get into a new area, when you get into a new workspace with new people you have to work with, it's really hard to gain that trust with them and create what you want to create. Like, it takes steps. So I feel for him. It's hard listening to their recent albums, like You Calling My Name, Die, and then Breath of Love, because they got more of a creative say in those than they did before. And then that was kind of taken away when they decided to leave. So now they're having to rebuild that creative identity on their own. And then they also want to stay together. It's kind of scary to think about.
Yeah, it's kind of rare, their situation, right, where they debuted with JYP as GOT7. They were able to continue as GOT7 after their contract had expired, which is kind of nice. It gives you a little bit of continuity as far as like the amount of years you spend with a group or idols, and it does give you a little bit of the past to attach to. But again, like you said, very scary going off into something brand new, going off into something without the same infrastructure that you had, but also exciting.
On your own, without like your friends that you grew up with.
Yeah, especially solo, especially kind of in a new label, a new direction. But I do, I'm excited for him because, I'm very selective with this type of soloist music I listen to. Primarily R&B, primarily hip hop, some K-pop, but even the K-pop soloists I listen to tend to lean a certain way. With JB, I heard "Switch It Up" a few months ago. I think was when that song came out, right? And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I can vibe with this. And then this song was going to be covered on the main show, so I listened to it naturally, watched the music video, and I was like, oh, this is something I like. This is my direction. Like, I'm good with this. So JV comes out with the solo debut. I will let you take the lead here. Please let the audience know the title and the meaning and the story behind this artistic expression from JB.
Sure. So everything I know is basically from consuming myself and then also reading some interviews he did. But his EP is called SOMO FUME, and it's a play on words with the Korean word for consume, which is, I think, somopum, and perfume. So it's meant to be like a consumed perfume, essentially, and it's all just atmospheric. There's no particular meaning. It's literally just there for you to listen to a lot of, and just, getting the feels. I don't know. Vibe. So, it has technically 7 tracks, by the way, which is the currently promoted title track, AMPM with Wheein, Fame with Junie, Into You with Ginger, Switch It Up, which was released previously, Count on Me, and Paranoia is a physical album track that he wrote about mental health. So, not sure anyone else has listened to it yet. I haven't gotten my album yet, but I'm really excited to.
The struggle of physical copies. A side question: do you have anything to play a physical album on? I do not.
I have my car.
Yes, that's the only place I can do that. So
I have been wanting to get the little wall-mounted Bluetooth speaker that has the spinny. Yeah, you know the one.
Super fancy, high-tech, sharper images. Yep.
Yeah. I think it's specifically sold as the K-pop speaker. Oh, because K-pop fans own physical copies.
Last of a dying breed.
Right.
But definitely dedicated to your fandom, to your craft, to JP. And I think it's really interesting that he decided to, thematically label this album as a mood, a vibe, something to experience nebulously, like you said, kind of like a cloud. A veil, a fog, right? Any one of those very descriptive ways to kind of move through the world. What did you think about like the direction of this type of R&B, kind of the minimalist blend between hip hop and R&B with a little bit of trap undertone?
I think this was very in line with his stuff on SoundCloud, but with a little more refined texture. And he even mentioned himself, like, he doesn't have creative control over the music right now. He usually produces with a team called Offshore, which also includes Junie. And it's interesting to hear some of these tracks because it's like, it's him, but it wasn't made by him. And it's kind of apparent. But he did say, like, even if that wasn't the case, his ideas were prioritized, which is really nice for an artist. So hopefully he keeps going in this direction because it's literally everything I was expecting. I wouldn't say it went above my expectations, but it met them, and that makes me happy.
That's good. I'm glad that there was a bit of familiarity with what you know about him, and because you're such a fan, because you're able to kind of connect those dots throughout his career and the things you've gone back into, there does at least retain his essence, right?
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting moving forward how he's able to navigate creative control, creative freedom, depending on what situation he's in. But I think so far, I enjoyed this release. I think it's a good start. There are a few people that we know who have certain opinions. The crew, the main show, Doug, Warren, and Anita, shout out to you guys. They had different opinions this week. You know, I don't think it does me any good to repeat most of those. I think you know them well enough. What did you think about the crew's response and your reactions to, I guess, how they reacted to the song and music video?
I mean, it was painful, not gonna lie. Like, hearing your friends not really appreciate the same things you appreciate. But they also made some very good points, and they also gave a lot of credit to JB as an artist. Like, oh, well, we know his vocal skills are more than what he's showing in this. I can understand why people are underwhelmed by the title track, because when I first listened, honestly, I was a little disappointed just because, like, the first track, by the way, it's very repetitive. Like, JB literally has 2 lines, and he just sings them over and over, and then J Park raps in the middle. And it's a vibe, but it's not something that you would actively listen to. And that's kind of what a title track should do, in my opinion. But I understand why they chose it after listening multiple times. It's because it's very catchy. It's because you can dance to it easily, which he wanted to perform on music shows, so that's what he was doing. So I get it. But yeah, it's not going to be for everyone.
I think he was caught in a really interesting spot where he himself is a great performer. I mean, the choreography is actually super like appealing. Watching it in the music video, and I'm sure on stage, the entire thing plays out really well. But his direction is very smooth hip hop R&B, very, like Warren said, Asian boy on SoundCloud kind of vibe.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I like it, but I honestly don't know which other song would have been better to perform if you're talking about like the general K-pop audience. But if you're talking about JB fans or people who are fans of the genre, that song works pretty well.
Okay.
But again, like in comparison to like what else is out there, I think the things they pointed out about being repetitive, J Park kind of being a little bit too prominent in the song, all stand to reason. And I think because of you're looking at the entire package and then what you're presenting to the general audience, that's where I do feel like I agree with it falling a little short. However,
because you expect kind of like this to be the only track some people listen to. Like, some people aren't going to get into JB. They're just going to hear this and say, oh, I like it or I don't. Yeah. And I don't think this one does a good of job with that, but it does do a good job of setting up the album and having those sounds.
And Warren did mention to listen to the EP. So he listened to it, and I'm sure he's got a lot of cool thoughts about it because he did speak quite highly of it. You mentioned the tracks. I listened to the entire thing. I quite like the entire story, the entire progression. What are your overall thoughts? First impressions, your feelings, everything that it evoked out of you. What did you feel?
It definitely hit a chord. Just, I was feeling some R&B already. I was listening to some Tinashe, and I was like, give me some more like new content that I know I'll like. Wien, excellent. Love her choice. I'm so glad she decided to collab on this. And produced by Gray, also excellent. I think I have a preference towards Fame with Junie just because I really like the upbeat sounds in it, and it's a little more dancey. I think he also has another track he did with Junie in the Offshore Team that I really liked. So I think that's my favorite. Maybe the last one, Count on Me, just because it is more pure JB. I can't decide. Honestly, it's all just so good. I can listen to it on repeat. I don't see it getting tired of very quickly.
Do you have a close 1 and 2 that are your favorites?
I'll say Fame and Count on Me. Yeah,
nice.
1 and 2.
Okay, let's start with Fame. So, like you said, it's featuring Junie, produced by Groove Room. really fitting that it opens with a groovy bass line, and it's got a nice blend of like a guitar piano riff at the beginning. The chorus kind of flourishes really nicely, but overall, I really like the song because the way that the album progresses, it has the very like catchy opener with J Park, and then it goes into a softer R&B song with AM/PM, and then it goes into a groovy kind of like you're at a lounge, you're at a bar that's a little bit more chill, and then you're getting to know the person that you're in a romantic situation with. What did you think? Well, did you get a chance to check out the lyrics, or at least get an idea of the story and the symbolic nature of the song?
The lyrics. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be romantic. I know like a lot of the other tracks in this album are, so maybe it is. But singing it with Junie, like Junie's his friend, so it could also just be like a partnership of like, hey, we're gonna get famous together. We're best friends. We're gonna take over the world.
That's a really nice point, because I was looking at it from the point of view of you're putting the female person you're interested in the spotlight, front and center, them to be famous because they mean everything to you. But not that you recontextualize it with him singing with Junie, and it's like, hey, dude, it's like, we're going to get famous. We're going to explore the world and adventure together. I love you, man. I feel that now. Like, it was an epiphany, like in the moment. So... like, props to you for pulling that out.
I definitely, when I was reading the lyrics, I was thinking like a more romantic tone of, putting a woman forward. But just like the collaboration, that it just was another interpretation of it, I guess. And as we've found out, it probably means nothing. It's just a vibe, you know? So
yeah,
you can go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does flow into that theme of open to interpretation, open to the person experiencing that moment. I actually like love that idea where not everything has to have this rigid meaning, this rigid definition, and just the way that you can go in and out of different songs, either the entirety or just one or two songs here and there. It's nice. I mean, it's a good feeling, right? Let's jump backwards a little bit to track 2 with AM/PM featuring Wien, produced by Gray. I love the song? Question mark? Question mark only because there's another song I think I like a little bit more. But I don't know. What did you think about this song, and how did you feel like the inclusion of Wien and her style of vocals paired with JB?
A great song. I usually don't I don't like slower songs just because I like to be hyped up, but this is one of those, because like you said, the whole album like flows in a very nice way. So when I'm listening to it on repeat, this is a nice like chill moment. And it's very sexy. I like that. I think their voices complement each other well because they're very distinct. Like they both have pretty unique voices, and they're mixed well together to complement each other and sort of provide a dissonant harmony.
Dissonant harmony. And it's very fitting with the themes of the song. So if you don't know the lyrics, please check them out, because it's about love causing a lot of pain and anguish between two people who may or may not be right for each other, but they just can't have enough of each other. They think about each other morning and night, AM and PM. There's a passionate flame between the two of them that they just can't shake.
And they do that so well. Like their voices do such a good job of like making that yearning sound.
Yeah, yearning, like longing for each other, but at the same time pushing away at a distance, but understanding the conflict and the pain. There's a lot going on in that song. And the crazy thing is, like you said, it's actually a much more toned down song than a couple of the other songs on this album. Mm-hmm. So a really interesting blend of emotions and feelings. But again, vocals very strong, just like the crew and the main show celebrated with JB. We're just gonna go into every single one of these songs. All right, so track number 4. Here we go. Into You, featuring Ginger, produced by Woogie. What'd you think? This one's a little bit more toned down. This one's a little slower. Was there anything that stood out to you in particular about this song?
I wasn't into this when I first heard it, but the more I heard it, the more I sort of craved it, especially that beginning line. It's delivered so well. And I think it's like very chill, very trying not to repeat myself, but the vibe of it was uh, under the sea, just like underwater. I don't know.
No, it's that feeling you get when your senses are a little bit dulled and you're muffled a little bit underwater, kind of flowing, kind of floating through things. I love the opening as well. Very late night lounge, like the end of the night, nightcap. Everyone's going home, or everyone's already at home, and it's like, "Hey, girl, want to come over? You know, we can get one last drink before we call it a night, either in one location or separate. Up to you, because you know it's consensual." But musically, I do like the snapping rhythm that really sets the tone for the song, and nightcap, a lot of alcohol references.
Yeah, this was one of the tracks that JB really emphasized. He said it was like his highlight track on the album because when he was writing it, he was thinking of two lovers having wine, just like two people having wine together. So they're like drinking each other in, drinking the wine in. It's all kinds of sexy. I love it.
Can I break the fourth wall a little bit? So I did not look up anything about this album. I just kind of went by feel and lyrics.
Nice.
I literally wrote drinking up each other's presence.
Oh.
So
good.
I understood you, JB. I got you. One of the lyrics that I really liked from Ginger was a pleasant scent and a summer night sip. More evocative of just sipping wine than just sharing a drink with someone you're interested in, right? Not necessarily like a love interest, or perhaps a love interest, but you know, someone that you're emotionally attached to in some kind of way. And I do feel like, again, it goes into the nebulous nature of what all of these emotions could mean in different circumstances to different people. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Any closing thoughts do you have on this song before we move on to the next one?
Just love it.
All right, so we'll move on to Switch It Up. So this track was released a few months ago, I think. A few months ago, right? It's featuring Sokodomo, produced by Cha-Cha Malone. This one's a little bit of an upbeat trap song. You know, we're kind of revisiting it, but what did you think about this song being included near the end of the album and how it flowed into it?
It worked out really well, and I think it made absolute sense to put it where it is. It gives you the nice up and down roller coaster sort of vibe, and this was like a little bump that you get some airtime, and you're like, "Wee! I know this one. I can sing along."
Yeah, if you don't know this song, check it out. If you are, you know what, kids, if you want to learn about how to really romantically attach to these types of things that you do with another human being, you know, it's art. Art's cool.
It's very promiscuous.
Very promiscuous. Very sensual. Adult stuff is occurring in this song. But you know, I do like the idea that, you know, it takes you kind of through the progressions of a relationship or the progressions of romance, right? Where you have like the introduction phase, you have a little bit of the infatuation, but then you take it to the next level and you get a little bit more physical with someone. Define that however you like. And I do feel like this is a nice spot to put this song into, where we're kind of getting this point of a relationship. Do you have any other feelings about this song now that you've listened to it completely with the other songs?
Love it just as much. I do think it works way better, like fully encompassed in the EP rather than on its own. Same with the title track, by the way. It all complements each other. So
yeah. And just a quick aside, the EP isn't a super long, heavy listen. I would say if you are just curious of how it's gonna go, it will not take you very long. and you'll feel a certain kind of way, and you'll actually, it felt very satisfying listening to the entire thing. And I looked
Mm.
up, and it wasn't one of those where it's like, oh, I wish there was more, oh, this felt too short. It kind of just felt right, like the
Yeah.
length, right? And that takes us into track number 6, Count on Me, produced by Groovy Room. This one's very again, chill but cruising kind of vibe. It's a nice end to the album. What'd you think? How'd you feel? How'd you feel about this song being the end of this story?
I think it's good. I love that it's a little more rhythmic and it adds that guitar, which kind of was different from the rest of the tracks. So it's like leaving off on a lighter note.
Yeah. Do you get a sense of maturation with this song? Not necessarily maturation of like emotional maturation, but like relationship maturation, where and it doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, but when you first meet someone, you have those excited wanting to get to know you feelings, and then you get into, oh, I've known you for a bit, but now we've kind of like fallen into a little bit of familiarity. But then you get to the end where it's very companionate, right? Where you don't necessarily have to be together all the time, but it's familiar. It's something that's reliable, something that you can come back to. Was there any sense of like those elements or levels of relationships that you felt with this song kind of being the period, or yeah, like the period, like the end of the sentence kind of thing?
Right. I think, yeah, I didn't think that much into it, but I think you're right. There's definitely a familiarity. Like I said, this kind of feels like one of the more JB tracks, maybe because it doesn't have a feature on it, right? It's just him. And I kind of took it as sort of, you can count on me, fans. Don't worry about GOT7, we'll be together. Or like, you can count on me to keep going and making more music. There's a lot of interpretations, and I think it does work well with a sort of narrative of a love story that is going throughout this whole album.
Yeah, there's a nice little like hint of commitment in a not scary way, right? Where it's like you're committing to knowing this person, or committing to knowing this person's journey. And I think this is kind of a nice way to end it for now. But let's take it into track 7. So I didn't know about this song prior to us talking today, which is kind of cool, kind of great.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that he is talking about mental health, especially in an Eastern Asian culture, especially where things are still quite a challenge to get visibility on. Knowing what you know about the song and his process, what are your thoughts and opinions about this being kind of a bonus song?
Yeah, he said that it doesn't really match the rest of these songs, so I'm curious like what direction it's going to go. He also said that it's not meant to be a heavy song of, oh, I'm dealing with stuff. It's just meant to be something that everyone can relate to, because whether you have a disorder or whether you're just like going through a really rough time, everyone can relate to those patches. And maybe I'm kind of thinking maybe it'll be the same tone of Count on Me, where it's a little more upbeat, or not upbeat, but it's familiar, but I have no clue. I know he's spoken about mental health before, particularly while he was promoting Switch It Up. He did a whole like, I forgot which channel does it, but they make you take out your bag and like take out all the stuff that you carry around with you. And one of them were antidepressants. And he took it out. He's like, my company said I probably shouldn't, but like, this is normal. People take medication. And if you need to take medication, you shouldn't be ashamed of it. So I think it's good to have that sort of stance, especially for someone like him that has probably a lot more international fans than Korean fans. So he knows that he's probably not going to get any repercussions.
Yeah, I mean, it goes a long way to recontextualize a lot of those very challenging topics, right? Whether that's dealing with mental health on the emotional level, or the interventions that you can find with mental health, therapy, medication, or just, talking about it, that is an intervention in and of itself, and that kind of expression, right? And I think that's kind of a beautiful sentiment to kind of give us a bonus track. I'm curious what it's going to sound like. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about it when you get a chance to, because I'm curious the messaging and anything else he has to say about it once the album has a little bit more run to go online. So now moving into our closing thoughts. I mean, that was a very, very spirited album discussion, and now we're going to talk a little bit more about JB and JB into your life in particular, because you are a very big fan. Where are you now with JB, whether that's emotionally, whether that's intellectually, whether that's just, how you live in your life with this musician, this artist, getting you through things?
I think he's definitely a new part of my playlist, because he's kind of opened me up to a new genre. I wasn't really into R&B before, and I think the combination of staying at home and just being more chill, and then also trying to know more about him and his work, it opened me up to a lot more R&B sounds and a lot more chill trap sounds. So I'm excited to keep riding this wave as long as I want to. And I'm excited to see where he goes. I want him to keep going in this direction. But I also kind of hope that he does a little more experimental stuff, or definitely like working with his crew in Offshore, because they do great work together. I'm sure they'll work on future GOT7 stuff.
Yeah, no, that does kind of lead into like my closing question I typically ask a lot of guests, but to kind of like put a bow in everything, like what do you hope for moving forward, whether that's like new music, like you said, or perhaps some kind of live situation, a tour, please, world, open up. What are you, I don't know, what are your hopes for with life, with JB, with music, with K-pop in general?
So, I mean, I personally am going through a crisis as a third gen, mostly boy group stan. It is the apocalypse where all of my favorite members are going into the military, and JB has yet to go. So I'm very doubtful that I'll be able to see him live before that. Maybe afterwards. Maybe he'll do a world tour. Maybe GOT7 would do a world tour. That would be incredible. I don't know. We'll see. My BTS tickets just got canceled, so just kind of lost a lot of hope.
Yeah, that's tough. But I will say, if there is one example, I guess is a good, examples of something to look forward to. 88 Rising, their music festival is still going. It's still good to go.
Yeah. I heard about that.
It's November. I don't think they've announced the 2 or 3 mystery guests yet. I was trying to put my conspiracy theory hat on and trying to like piece together the puzzle, and it kind of looks like it's alphabetical, and then it kind of looks like the question mark mystery guests are also alphabetical. So one of them is in the J region. So I'm thinking,
which means nothing, of Korean artists.
Jackson is a possibility.
Oh, that's
Or JB. I say this because CL and DPR Live are going to be there. Seori's going to be there. BB's going to be there. So a number of Korean artists who are in the same circle of genre will be in attendance. And I think it might just be a matter of getting visas to perform in the United States.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah, I actually don't think it has anything to do with like being a mystery. I think it's logistics. So we will hold out hope there, and hopefully that is the blueprint to get our favorite artist, JB in particular, stateside, touring, seeing everyone, seeing all those that he loves, and love him back. All right, Therese. Final words go to you. Any closing thoughts? Any lasting things you'd like to leave the audience with after this conversation?
I love the EP. I love the work you're doing, JB. Keep it up.
We love it too. Listen to the EP, everyone. Even if the conversation on the main show was a little questionable about the song itself, I promise you, if you like that genre, those 6 songs play exceptionally well together. So check it out. Thank you for yes. Yeah, 100%. All right. Well, you can catch Therese on the Soju Talk Nation Discord. She is TikTok lady. Therese, plug the TikTok.
Oh, right. We have a TikTok specifically for main show edits that's called Soju Talk Fan. So just search it up, or if you just search Soju Talk on TikTok, we have a whole little hashtag with all the edits and everything. So
excellent bite-sized pieces of the main show, and different discussion points to help fans like come in to Soju Talk to kind of see what we're about. I think we've had, noticeably, at least from what I saw on Discord, 3 or 4 people find us through TikTok that I saw in the introductions recently.
It's popping off with the Girls Planet 999 discussion, so I expect more people.
Yeah. Please support. Go follow the TikTok account. When Therese gets to 10,000 followers, she will do a special TikTok where she will dance. I promise. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Soju Sessions on...
Don't listen to Crispy.
the Soju Talk Nation podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify or your preferred podcast platform, and continue the conversation on the Soju Talk K-pop podcast Discord, and follow Soju Fan on TikTok. For Therese, I'm Crispy, and this has been the Soju Sessions.